Hello class, what I wanted to do in our final stretch of this course is to go over some of the fun things that we can do in PowerPoint. A lot of this course focuses on some of the basic aspects to get you started as a PowerPoint user, and what I like to do is kind of take some of that foundation and move you into some of the more fun, some of the more advanced things, but it's really up for you to be able to practice that in order to expand your competencies from here. But what I do want to do is just go over a little bit of how you would animate and create a slideshow that transitions automatically. The first thing that we want to do is click on the transition tabs here. And from here we can click on all the different types of transitions that we want to use. We can use a transition from a shape to random bars, cut, reveal, split, wipe, push, fade, none. And then we even have some more if we use the drop down arrow here, or the scroll arrow rather. So there's all these different types of fun and interesting transitions that we can use. For professional ones, I tend to either recommend using none or fade. And if you click on fade, you're going to see that it comes up automatically with the duration of 0.7 seconds. So what that's going to do is when you go from one slide to the next, it's going to take a little bit more than half a second to fade from one slide to the next. I tend to like to use the none, and then we just go from one to the next. And in order to make this automatic, what we have to do is unclick on where it says advanced slide, unclick, mouse click, and then put after. If I were to leave this at 0, what it's going to do is advance the slide automatically as soon as all of my previous animations have been completed. If I wanted to finish all of my animations and then wait up to a minute, I can put that time frame here. I tend to use it as just 0 because once my stuff is done, then I'm just going to move to the next slide. And it's going to do that automatically for all of my slides if I press apply to all. That's important because if I only apply it to one slide, it's only going to apply to that, and then all the remaining slides are going to advance on a click as opposed to just automatically. So we want on mouse click unchecked, after 0 seconds checked, and apply to all. And now what it's going to do is every time you are ready to advance to the next slide, it's going to do it automatically. Now from here we can animate the slide, and what that means is that we can add movements to different parts of this slide presentation. So by clicking on the animations tab, and I like to work with the animation pane open, when you click on that, the animation pane opens up, and as we start adding animations, they'll be listed right here on the right hand side. So first what I'll do is click the first arrow that I want to animate, and I'm just going to animate these 2 arrows for the sake of showing you in a simple format how to add animations. I click on it, and then all of these options are able to be, these options are now available. These are the different types of animations that we can add. For the sake of simplicity, I'm just going to show you fly in. Now if I click on fly in, you can see here that I have an animation that's already set, and it is going to occur when I click the mouse. So if I come into this slide, once I click the mouse, it's automatically going to do that for me. If I were to click on with previous, that means that as soon as the previous thing happens, this animation is going to happen as well. In this case, the previous thing is that we open up this slide. You can look at what your slide is going to do in a preview by clicking on the preview here. So you can see that our arrow has flown in from the bottom. If I want to change that, what I can do is go to text effects, click my drop down, and I can click the different ways that I want it to drop in. This arrow in particular, I'm going to move this from left. And what that means is instead of going from top to bottom, this is going to go from left to right. And the duration is the time that it takes to get there. So for right now, it takes a half a second to move from here to here. Let me go to the preview again and show you. And it moves rather quickly. If I were to advance that to 1.5 seconds and go to the preview, you can see that my arrow now flies in a little bit slower. The next thing that I want to do is animate my other one, my other arrow, and I'm going to have that fly in as well, and I'm going to have that one fly in from the right. And I'm going to have that go with previous as well. So right now both of these are set to with previous, and I'm going to change that so that this is also a duration of 1.5 seconds. So now once the animations begin, this arrow and this arrow are both going to fly in from their respective directions at the same time. If I were to say that I want my orange arrow to fly in first and I want my blue arrow to fly in afterwards, what I can do is I can set a delay. Right now we have an orange arrow flying in at 1.5 seconds, so I can click on my blue arrow and say that I also want that to fly in at 1.5 seconds here as my duration, but I also want to add a delay of 1.5 seconds so that it starts to fly in after the first one has been completed. Now if I click on my preview, I have an arrow that flies in afterwards. The other way to do that is to say we want a delay of 0 and we want that to fly in after previous. And we can see here in the time frames that it takes that this action is going to take place after this action because this is a spectrum of time here. So we can do it after previous, and it's going to look the same way. Now if we add a narration or some sort of video or audio clip and we set that to after previous, all these animations are not going to take place until that video has stopped. So that, or audio has stopped as well. So that is where the with previous or after previous becomes really important, is if we want to have some of these animations occur within a time frame of a different animation, such as playing a video or audio clip. There are a couple different ways to change the text effects. One of them again is from right here on your text effect drop down list, and another way is to click the drop down list right on the animation itself within the animations pane. We can work on when we want it to start, how we want it to start. We can work on effect options and timing and all of those different options here. So we can do it here, or we can do all this stuff here. We could also, and this is a pretty cool thing, we can add multiple animations to a single object. So right now we have this set to fly in. I can add an animation by clicking the Add Animation drop down and say now I also want it to fly out once I move on to my next animation here. And what I can do is say that I want it to fly out with previous. I'm going to set this to a half a second, and I'm going to give this a 3-second delay so that our orange arrow flies in, our blue arrow flies in, then my orange arrow will fly out. Click on the preview. And you can see that we're a little bit off with timing, and we're a little bit off with the different type of text effects. So what I can do is click on the animation that I want to edit in my animation pane, and I can start working on the time frames from here. I think maybe we're about a half a second off there, and I think maybe I want this to fly out from to the right. And we can look at it again in our preview tab, and it looks a little bit different. So we can play around with all these different types of animations. We can figure out how we want things to move, when we want them to move, where we want them to move, just by practicing with all these different options here. The other thing that we can do is click on the insert screen where we can add pictures and all of that sort of stuff, the smart art, the shapes, and we can insert video or audio. One of the cool things is that we can click on audio on my PC and I can upload maybe a music file, or I can record my own voice. Just by clicking on the little red dot here, it's going to record an audio file, and then I can add that here, and I can animate that as well by just saying that I want it to play as soon as I move on to my slide. I can also do an online video or a video that's on my PC, and I can have that embedded right into my presentation. So that, in a nutshell, is how to, in a very basic manner, animate your slides so that they transition automatically and so that your objects move automatically. There is a very complex way to use this, and it can get very frustrating at times, so it is something that takes a lot of practice, but I do recommend going into YouTube and going in some of those tutorials and step-by-step demonstrations. And of course, as I've said before, I definitely recommend that you practice with all of these things, and the more you practice, the better you get and the better your presentations will look. I have really enjoyed going over a lot of this content with you. As always, if any of you need any help or if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me. And as this course is set to wrap up, it has been an absolute honor working with all of you, and I'm really glad to see the amount of growth that all of you have had. And I know that you're going to do great things, and hopefully you're able to take all of these things that we've taught you throughout this course, and you can use them productively in your courses moving forward. All right, everybody, take care.